What's up, Team Human? In predictable Kismet fashion, we are putting this message out today with every intention of disrupting a trend that is jeopardizing your equity. Previously targeted markets have suffered irreversible damage to both homeownership rates and local economies. We believe we can keep our equity out of the pockets of big business and Wall Street, but we need your help to spread awareness. As real estate financing experts, we consider one of our highest callings to be protecting the equity of our communities and preserving access to homeownership. We consider the ongoing maintenance of that asset to be one of our responsibilities. We're not just going to hit you up to refinance when rates are super sexy. We're going to hit you up when rates suck and the market's volatile and your equity's in jeopardy, and we have some unfun things to share. We hope that you'll listen. We need your help. This is a bigger problem than you think.
It's a phenomena that we are calling equity mining, where Wall Street firms, foreign investors, and pension funds
let's manipulate the economy
are exploiting REITs, real estate investment trusts, to buy up residential property at unprecedented rates whilst avoiding tax obligations. They target certain markets using sophisticated algorithms to make ultra-competitive offers on properties that meet their criteria.
For example, one venture, Progress Residential, whose parent company is Pretium Partners, whose CEO is Don Mullen, who you might remember from The Big Short, acquires as many as 2,000 houses a month with a computerized property search algorithm and rapid all-cash offers. Within 15 minutes of a house appearing on the MLS, the company's computers assess whether it should be flagged for review by the company's acquisition team. Within 2 hours of the listing, Progress can make an offer, well before any actual buyers have had a chance to see it. This is from an agent in Phoenix. I just placed my home in the coming soon status. Progress Residential sent me an offer $25,000 over asking and buying as is. I haven't even posted pictures. Looks like a massive rental company, but sounds too good to be true. Any advice? Yeah, go with your gut, Andres.
Ultra competitive, pricing first and second time buyers completely out in affected markets. In states like Texas and California, investors are buying entire subdivisions directly from builders, doubling the builders' profits. They buy up enough inventory to exercise monopolistic control over rental markets and then send rental rates skyrocketing.
Homeownership gives people a stake in society, and it's how we build wealth on this side of the gap.
In many counties, it's no longer a question of can I purchase a house? It's a question of can I afford to rent a house?
Let's check out a visual representation of this practice in Rutherford County, Tennessee, where nearly 1 in 10 homes is owned by a real estate investment trust. This is Tammy Sue Lane, where Progress Residential owns 19 homes, including 11 in a row, all acquired in the last 6 years. Let's go macro and zoom out to the neighborhood, and then again to the county level, showing the 1,500 properties they've acquired.
Another company that gets a lot of press is BlackRock. There are a handful of other players, and we'll name them, but first let's have a look at how BlackRock is doing it.
What if I told you there is a robot that controls more wealth than any country on earth? A robot so powerful that in the last 10 years, it has quietly created the biggest company in the world. This is the story of a robot called Aladdin. It's Wall Street's best kept secret, and it's gobbling up every asset class across every industry. Aladdin now controls $21 trillion of our global economy. To put that in perspective, that's more than the $20 trillion GDP of the US. Aladdin has grown into a system responsible for more than 4 times the value of all the money in the world. This one robot directs the actions of the US Federal Reserve, almost every major bank and investment fund on Wall Street, and over 17,000 traders. It controls half of all ETFs, 17% of the bond market, 10% of the global stock market, and carries out 250,000 trades every day and billions of forecasts every week. And you know what the craziest part of this story is? This robot is just getting started. So where did Aladdin come from, and how did it get so powerful? Aladdin is the brainchild of Larry Fink, the founder of BlackRock, and its total dominance has made his company the biggest shadow bank in the world and the most powerful company on earth. Larry had just one ambition: to build a super smart robot that could pick out risk and opportunity in the market and do it better than any computer or human could do. In 1988, he launched a new startup, BlackRock, with a tiny coding team to give birth to this robot. Its name, Aladdin, which stands for Asset, Liability, and Debt Derivative Investment Network. Today, over 70% of all trades on US stock markets are decided by robots, with Aladdin leading the way. These trades are completed from beginning to end without a human involved, in high-frequency trading far faster than a human can execute. Now, if this was just a story about a robot taking over the job of Wall Street traders, you might not be so concerned. But in the last 3 years, as Aladdin hit $20 trillion in assets, incredibly, it has begun to consume and control at an even faster rate. Recently, BlackRock acquired eFront, which collects data on the things that you and I own, including private equity and real estate. And since then, Aladdin has consumed eFront's data on the entire global real estate market. And yep, you guess what happened next. Over the last 2 years, BlackRock and other funds using Aladdin's data have begun buying up single-family homes where they can afford to outbid the rest of us as they have unlimited financing at hyper-low interest rates. And here we see Aladdin's endgame, to be the one hyper-intelligent AI robot that not just controls Wall Street assets, but all assets, public and private. And what about government regulation? Well, Joe Biden has appointed BlackRock executive Brian Deese as head of the National Economic Council, which basically means the oversight of Aladdin and BlackRock is now the responsibility of BlackRock. And Biden has also appointed BlackRock Chief of Staff, Wally Adeyemo, to be Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, which means BlackRock is now the Treasury as well as the Treasury Advisor. One robot controls more wealth than any person or country. But as Aladdin's AI capabilities continue to grow, and with its rate of control rising by another $1 trillion to $2 trillion in new assets every year, it looks inevitable that Wall Street's secret weapon could end up owning everything, and we end up owning nothing.
Let's take a closer look at Larry Fink.
Uncertainty. Markets don't like uncertainty. Markets like actually totalitarian governments where you have a understanding of what's out there, and obviously we're the whole dimension is changing now with as you said, a democratization of countries, and democracies are very messy, as we know in the United States. You have opinions changing back and forth.
Nothing to see here. We said we would mention other players. Other players include Invitation Homes, American Homes for Rent. We see a lot of them in Salt Lake. Tricon Capital, Mind, Pretium Partners, which is Progress Residential, Front Yard Residential, BlackRock.
Tricon Residential CEO Gary Berman was actually quoted saying you can rent the American dream.
Gary Berman is CEO of Tricon Residential, a Toronto-based company that has quietly become one of the largest owners of single-family homes in the United States.
We own about 30,000 single-family rental homes across the U.S.
You are a multi-billion-dollar company. You're publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange.
Correct.
Your revenue went up last year by 67%. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're expanding.
Tricon is trying to buy 800 houses a month. And there are companies even bigger. Invitation Homes owns more than 80,000 rental houses. American Homes for Rent, close to 60,000. Some of the all-stars of finance, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Blackstone, have put hundreds of millions of dollars into these companies. Big investment companies like yours are being blamed for this huge increase in rents across the country. And you can set the rent anywhere you want, really.
There's a lot more going on than just corporate landlords bidding up homes.
Gary's right. There is a lot more going on in the market than just corporate landlords bidding up housing. Like, we have way more demand than supply, and that trend is going to continue, which is exactly why we don't need corporate landlords bidding up housing, especially Canadian corporations bidding up American housing. The number one way we transfer and accumulate wealth is through real estate. Most people don't make enough money to build the kind of savings that they accumulate through property appreciation. The asymmetry in the wealth gap has led to significant corruption in governments, markets, industries, corporations. Transferring an entire generation of wealth over to those people is clearly not going to help our case. So despite affordability being at maybe all-time lows due to unsustainable appreciation and climbing interest rates due to crazy inflation, corporate investors are picking up the pace in their acquisition practices. Given how proud Gary was of how many units they've acquired, surely it's safe to assume that they're transparent when it comes to recording ownership. Let's see. Raleigh realtor Brittany Jones listed a home, and within 24 hours she had 3 offers, all cash and bids well over the list price. They'd take the property as is, and all 3 had out-of-state addresses with obscure names marked with abbreviations and numerals, like MCH SFR NC Owner 3 LP and IH6 Property North Carolina LP.
Let's have some fun really quick and throw on our underwriting hats and see if we can figure out how many properties one of these companies owns in Salt Lake County. So let's go with American Homes for Rent. So let's start at the Salt Lake County Assessor's website. We can see that they own 88 homes. So let's go over to the Utah Business Search so we can see several companies listed. Clicking on one of them, 23975 Park Sorrento in Calabasas. Okay, so let's take that address over to a search engine and see what comes up. Let's check out Bizpedia. We can see that there are 250 companies registered to that address. We see some of these names repeated. Let's look up AH4R back at the county assessor website and see if they have properties listed under another name. 124 homes. Okay. Back to the Bizpedia page. We see AMH a few times. Let's type that in. 346 items, all under separate LLCs that are registered to a company in Delaware. Why does one set up an LLC in Delaware? Those who establish an LLC in Delaware will find that they enjoy far greater benefits in the areas of privacy, asset protection, and taxation than in most other states. LLC members are not liable for the debts of a failed LLC. One does not need to provide a great deal of information to start a Delaware LLC. In Delaware, one is not under any requirement to disclose personal information to the state when forming an LLC.
You don't even have to have visited Delaware. It's due to these leniencies that Transparency International describes Delaware as one of the world's best examples of grand corruption, a dubious distinction that critics say provides corporations, fraudsters, and wealthy individuals secrecy and asset protection that puts it on a footing with notorious tax havens like the Cayman Islands.
So how are REITs taxed? Investors like REITs, real estate investment trusts, for their generous income streams.
REITs do not have to pay federal taxes at the corporate level if they follow certain rules. More specifically, REITs are allowed to deduct dividends paid to shareholders from taxable income, and thus have the ability to shield 100% of taxable income through distributions to shareholders. No other firm in the economy can deduct dividends. If you own shares in a REIT, 20% of your dividend income is exempt from taxation. So the properties are deeded to countless LLCs, each LLC registered in Delaware under registered agent addresses that also anchor hundreds of other companies. Some of them even have multiple registered agent addresses listed under the LLCs, which means I would have to go to each address listed, search for each company registered to that address, and then go back to each county and search each one of those businesses and tally them up to figure out how many properties these companies own in each county. If I didn't want you to know how many properties I owned, and I didn't want you to notice as I acquired enough properties to monopolize your market, this is exactly how I would do it.
Right.
Let's manipulate the economy.
If every offer came in under Progress Residential or American Homes for Rent, you would catch on pretty quickly.
So maybe they suck at transparency and paying taxes, but they own a gabillion properties. Surely they're good at property management, right?
As previously mentioned, these companies, whose entire mission is to provide rental opportunities, seem to not care much about renters.
Right.
A quick Yelp search shows the eruption of complaints about their property management practices. Beyond that, Congress is investigating many of them for violating the eviction moratorium during the pandemic.
Multi-billion-dollar corporate investors began buying up homes across the country. Now those homes are fetching huge profits for corporate landlords.
Yeah, but it's keeping renters from becoming first-time home buyers.
It's been a nightmare of an experience. Once we finally got the keys to move in, it was really dirty. There was feces. When we tried to get a hold of someone, we got bounced around from person to person. No one wanted to take responsibility.
Theirs is one of nearly 5,000 homes Progress Residential owns. They're one of the largest corporate rental companies in the country. And they're also among a handful of large out-of-state corporations that have bought up tens of thousands of homes in the Bay Area. Investors are buying properties in record numbers across the country. Nearly a quarter of all homes sold in Tampa last year went to investors. And in some zip codes, it's more than a third.
10 buyers for every one house for sale because 10% of our market is getting held up from corporate buyers.
That's not only driving up home prices, it's also causing rents to soar.
So it doesn't give you a lot of choices when they own so much of the market.
With so much of the housing market in the hands of big corporations, renters are at the mercy of profit-driven companies.
I don't even really know that they care about these houses that they're buying. They don't take very good care of them. They don't take very good care of the renters.
Progress Residential is run by Don Mullen, the former Goldman Sachs partner who famously made big bucks betting against the housing market in what later became known as the Big Short. Progress is now the second largest single-family landlord in the country.
This practice prevents access to homeownership, favoring the ultra-wealthy. Right now, we're kind of in uncharted territory. Equity market, the stock market is a mess due to geopolitical risk and other areas of instability. The bond market, the debt market, is not even an option right now due to inflation. So that leaves us with real estate. And what's an investor's job? To make money. So if we want to see where the places to make money are, we can watch what investors are doing. Real estate is one of the best ways to hedge against inflation. So whether this is just an inflation hedge by these companies or whether it's a land grab, we don't know. It is definitely inflating home prices at an unsustainable rate. We're not going to cry bubble, but that is a potential outcome if we don't start doing something about it. This is a unit for unit future reduction in real estate inventory. We're already in an inventory shortage. 33 years ago, more people had babies, and those babies are now adults wanting to buy houses. So we have an influx in people of home buying age coming into the market. We have regulations trapping builders from building new inventory. We have supply issues. We have shortage of construction workers. So a unit for unit reduction in future inventory is a big deal. These investors don't sell. They retain the properties. They keep them on their balance sheet. And like we said earlier, we're not sure that their goal is actually to be landlords because they're trash landlords. So it's important to note that we don't see them come back on the market in 3 years like we typically do in a regular real estate market driven by actual human beings.
So one thing to point out with the population growth is that boom that happened 33 years ago from now also happened for about 7 years. So we are in this for the next 7 to 10 years moving forward.
A lot of baby making.
Yes.
Okay, so that excess demand is going to continue. These corporate investors, if they make up the majority of landlords in your market, which that's what they do, they select markets based on their super smart algorithm, then they absolutely have the power to manipulate the rental rates in those markets. And that's what we're seeing. Rutherford County saw a 30% increase in rental rates from 2016 to 2020. We're seeing 20% increases in our market. It's unsustainable and it's pricing people out of renting homes. So I don't know where they're going to go. Parents, they're going to be living in your basement. I don't know. Monopolistic control over any market is not a good thing, especially when it's dudes like Larry Fink that think that markets want totalitarian governments. The rent increases aren't justified, and it's never justified to treat your tenants like trash. These are not local people that have a stake in the community. We have lending restrictions based on investor ownership percentages. The investors you need to be worried about are the ones that only bought the property as an inflation hedge or as a land grab. Maybe they're dictators. This is literally transferring funds to the less than 1%. There's a lot of money laundering that goes on, and they avoid tax obligations. This has a very negative impact on local economies. People that work in the area can't afford to live in the area, and that becomes a problem. That should just be a human problem. That shouldn't be something that we allow to happen in any markets. There's a fairly ubiquitous and widely upheld assumption that all sellers care about when selling their property is maximizing their profit without any consequence who they're selling to. And we would like to challenge that assumption. We believe that it's a collective illusion. Allow us to present our case. This is from a 2019 study of 5,200 people from a think tank. How would you personally define a successful life? A person is successful if they have followed their own interests and talents to become the best they can at what they care about most. Or B, a person is successful if they are rich, have a high-profile career, or are well-known. Now, which one do you think most other people would choose? If you chose option A for yourself but thought that most other people would choose option B, you are living under a collective illusion. And you're not alone. In the study, 97% chose option A for themselves, while 92% thought that most other people would choose option B. The same thing happened with fame. Out of 76 possible options, respondents thought that fame was the single most important priority for other Americans, but on a personal level, it ranked dead last. So regarding the assumption that all sellers' top priority is to maximize profit, we advise considering whether this is a collective illusion. First, this assumption is largely driven by realtors, their associations, and their interpretation of fiduciary responsibilities. Second, it's not what we're seeing or hearing from at least half the sellers we speak to. And third, we postulate that many sellers actually care more about their human responsibilities. We believe if sellers knew that they were choosing between giving a young couple a chance to start a life and build equity and contribute to the community versus exacerbating the wealth gap and selling out to these guys.
that they would select the young couple. There's energy behind everything we do, and we treat our karma with reference. It's important to have these conversations that sellers understand that this is the choice they're facing. And obviously, real estate agents, if you're pushing these offers, maybe it's time for a deep dive. Speaking of realtors, who the hell are these agents that are selling us out? This very sophisticated mini documentary would not be complete without covering that. But in order to do that, we've got to shout out to the agents that have your back. The first thing you need to know is that all licensed realtors are bound by something called the Code of Ethics. Admittedly, I know very little about the Code of Ethics except for the fact that every time something bad happens, one of my agent friends cites the Code of Ethics when they tell me why they can't say anything. My understanding is that realtors cannot say bad things about other realtors, even bad realtors. They are prohibited from going to the public with this information and must instead follow an internal process, kind of like how churches handle their own sexual abuse allegations. While this may be well-intentioned, it obviously has consequences. The effort may preserve the reputations of realtors in the eyes of the public, but it comes at the cost of truth and transparency. In my opinion, this is one of the main reasons we see so much shady shit in real estate. Most real estate agents are good, not all of them, and it's unreasonable to expect that to be the case. I'm not throwing shade against real estate agents, but I might be throwing shade against NAR. After lobbying against them on several issues in DC in my consumer advocacy efforts, I'm not quite sure whose agenda they are furthering. I think a worthwhile question to ask is, where are they on this issue? NAR is the largest lobby in DC, and they have been since 1998. Given the magnitude of this threat to realtors, the people they are supposed to be representing, you would think they would be on the front lines, and I wouldn't be having to make this video. Some realtors totally have your back. They may not be able to bring this information to you, but they can bring it to me. So when we started seeing progress in our market, a bunch of my agent friends that received this cheesy text sent it to me. I'm still representing the largest cash buyer in our market, so please send me any homes before they hit the MLS and buyers have a chance to buy them, so I can make a competitive cash offer. Benefits include waived appraisal, no financing contingencies, no other contingencies, no concessions requested, no home warranty, quick close of escrow. Our buyer, Progress Residential, is a large, reputable investment company that purchases homes for long-term rentals and owns several thousand homes throughout the Salt Lake City area. They are an all-cash buyer. I have personally represented them on a gabillion transactions that all went through seamlessly. Cheryl Kiprios. I have no idea how to pronounce your last name, and I don't care, with a 702 area code. Salt Lake is 801. So let's Google Cheryl. Cheryl is a broker salesperson, a top agent in Nevada, serving Las Vegas and surrounding areas, as well as institutional sellers and purchasers of residential properties. She's also a Keller Williams agent, a top agent, Tennessee, serving Nashville. 158 sales in the last 12 months. 312 sales in Columbus, Ohio. Okay. She's a top agent in Georgia, GK Properties. Okay. 627 sales in Texas, Austin, Dallas, Houston. Any agent knows that you can be an expert in all of those markets. So we mentioned Nevada, 124 sales in the last 12 months there, 700 sales in Phoenix, 171 in Colorado, and 119 in Utah last 12 months. Oh, what do we have? I forgot this was in here. She took out a PPP loan. She sold over 2,000 properties in the last 12 months in like 7 states. And supposedly she has nearly 25 years of experience, but she needed a PPP loan last year. Where did they find this chick? Like, I don't even know if I believe she's alive. Still needed a PPP loan. $20,833. Taxpayer money. Paid in full or forgiven. I think we all know the vast majority of those funds were forgiven and were not paid back. So either she doesn't get paid very well for selling out humanity, or maybe screwing humanity is just her thing, and we shouldn't be surprised. Any real estate agent knows that it's not possible to be an expert in, 7+ markets. Hopefully, listing agents are doing their homework as these offers come in and researching the entities that are offering along with their representation. So collective illusions are everywhere. They're all over the place.
Nonsensical points of view.
The market is self-correcting.
The market is always self-correcting and knows best that the leading thinkers are all sitting in institutional chairs.
That every previous civilization definition was the Hobbesian bias, brutish, nasty, short, dreadful lives, and that everything is awesome just in the last little bit because of this system, so don't criticize the system too much. Okay, so think about this. The definition of infidel for a jihadist ideology is anybody that's not supporting the jihadist ideology. The definition of witch was kind of a similar thing. I have a friend who went and looked at a bunch of the intelligence agency documents that had been declassified regarding how the intelligence agencies influence the definition of psychiatry. So their definition of something that translated to schizophrenia, the first symptom was had negative feelings about the state. The second symptoms might take a while to show up. You remember the previous definition of female mania, which basically translated to she had a sex drive. And so that was like a mental illness. So what I think happens is that the dominant system ends up eating psychology and saying that the psychology that supports the dominant system is healthy psychology, and anything that is dissenting to it's not healthy. It ends up eating spirituality and virtue and ethics and academia and whatever to basically say the behaviors that support the system are good, so the thinking that supports those behaviors is good, and anything that's dissenting is bad. And it's so easy to see it in the Crusades or in jihadism or even in Victorian time period. It's just very hard for us to see it about ourselves now. But I think that's actually like one of these fundamental things in terms of you're saying like, why don't we have group sense making, is because you have a self-perpetuating system that includes the self-perpetuation of the memes that support the system.
Especially in today's world where we consume more information in 24 hours than a human 100 years ago did their entire life. Collective illusions spread fast. It's how shit like the Holocaust happens. When we look back on our shadows of history and wonder how did human beings actually allow this to happen, we find a series of collective illusions. We are bringing this to your attention, Team Human, and we hope that you will stand with us, help us cultivate the collective agency to advocate for ourselves and put our feet down. Let's blow the lid off this shit. An agency is having the awareness about a problem and then having the tools or the skills to do something about it. Right now, we have collective agency to do something about this. We have the ability to stand up for ourselves. The actionable things that we can do, inform your neighbors. If you know somebody that's looking to sell their property, let them know this practice is going on. Starting to have these conversations and to discern these offers to select away from these corporations is an actionable way we can take control over the future that we are collectively creating. It isn't just our industry. By blow the lid off this, I mean off everything. Under the lid, the fabric of society is being ripped to shreds. We are a fractured population, divided over
religion, politics, health.
You name it. When you use your discernment and throw on your underwriting hat and analyze the information that's being passed along by the gatekeepers,
realizing that the show is a show,
it's evident that much of this division is an illusion. It is manufactured on behalf of an agenda.
And they'll play music on MTV. War is good for humanity. And they'll play music on MTV.
You don't divide a population to lead them, you divide a population to rule them. A distracted population at odds with one another isn't capable of uniting to advocate for themselves and to exercise collective agency. Leaders are people that you want to be like. They're people that do things better than you. They're people that embody your values. I want a leader that's been through some shit. Yeah, I smoke some pot. Who hasn't? I want a leader that has the agency to acknowledge it and is willing to take the risk that maybe you're not going to like me if you know this about me. But being human is hard. We all make mistakes. To pretend like we don't is like pretending like there are no shitty real estate agents. You and I, whoever you are, have a lot more in common with each other than we do with a billionaire, especially when it comes to the possibility space of our lives. So while those differences may be real, it is time to set them aside, to unite, and to re-incentivize truth and accountability and a reliable information ecology so we can get to a point where we actually share a reality. We mentioned the amount of information that we consume. We have access to information at unprecedented scale, which has also afforded us a whole lot of new knowledge about a whole lot of things. But if you're not still learning, you're not aware of it. Arguing with each other over projected certainty about things we believe isn't getting us anywhere. The truth is we don't know, and uncertainty is super uncomfortable. Humans by nature don't like uncertainty, but humans are tribal. We can lean on each other in order to get comfortable with uncertainty together, and instead of arguing with each other over what we believe, we can collectively underwrite the truth. That should be the goal, not getting someone else to believe our thing. We should be okay with being wrong. There's no way we should be able to discern what's going on right now. If we can engage in a cooperative dialectic discussion with the only goal to be finding the truth, and then trust humanity to get through it. We've gotten through a lot of shit. We can get through this, but we need to exercise agency to do it. It's not just us, and I'm not sure it's ever been any different. So that's one thing that's kind of cool about having incarnated for this party, is we get to be alive for it. Let's blow the lid off this shit. We have the agency to build the world that our kids deserve. We have a chance to do this right now. We have a chance
to actually use this period of time to do something novel and interesting and hopeful.
I don't know if humans have ever had a chance to do this. It's always been these guys. I think we can all agree that Cheryl has earned her dictator stash too. We have a chance to do this, so let's fucking do it. Let's blow the lid off this shit. Study after study across religion, race, politics, culture, most of us share the desire for stability and prosperity. We all just want to live in peace and create a better world for our kids. I can't help but feel that it's time to start living in right relationship with each other, with ourselves, with the land that we live on, and connect like never before. This is a way we can take our power back. So please join us in advocating for humanity and help us spread the word.